Hey everybody, welcome to DadsDen of Pop Culture. My recommendation today is a British TV show from 1969, a supernatural detective show with a bit of comedy. It's called Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, and you'll see why in just a moment. Dennis Spooner, just a genius of British TV, conceived the series around the same time he was creating Department S with Monty Berman. Department S is another very cool show. So Spooner wanted to do something with a ghost, and he thought a detective show offered a lot of possibilities. Lou Grade of ATV was not really interested until Ralph Smart, who had written for The Adventures of Robin Hood, the TV show, The Invisible Man, the TV show, and Danger Man, which I think was only a TV show, when he showed interest in writing the pilot. So Lou Grade was in. Now, apparently, the show was broadcast in the U.S. as My Partner, the Ghost, probably in syndication. I couldn't find any sign of it in a network, schedule. The first episode sets up the premise. Jeff Randall and Marty Hopkirk are detectives. Hopkirk is killed, apparently in a car accident, leaving his wife, Jean, a widow, and Jeff without a partner. But Marty has not completely departed the mortal realm. He's a ghost now, until sunrise, after which he must pass into the great beyond, where he's going to be stuck on Earth for, I believe, 100 years. Ultimately, it turns out that Marty was murdered as part of a bigger plot. He was really sort of just a detail in the whole plot. Jeff has to track down the killers, and in the process, Jeff is nearly killed, but Marty stays behind in order to save him and thus traps himself on Earth for 100 years. Now, Jeff is the only person who can see and hear and communicate with Marty. So now he's got himself a partner who's a ghost. The show has a solid cast. Mike Pratt plays Jeff Randall, private detective. For an American audience, who's not familiar with him or with the show or the character, he's kind of like a Jim Rockford type. Doesn't really want to stick his neck out, especially. Would probably be fine eking out a living, snapping pictures of philandering husbands, but he gets embroiled in these bigger cases. He's kind of a down-to-earth regular guy. Now, before acting, Pratt made a living playing jazz and skiffle, and he was a songwriter. Very sadly, he would pass away just 7 years after this show aired of lung cancer. So very young when he died. Marty Hopkirk is played by Kenneth Cope, who played in many TV shows and movies, including a few of the Carry On films. He lived to the ripe old age of 93, passing away just last year. Now, Jean Hopkirk, or Jeannie, so they sometimes call her, is played by Annette, an Australian actress. She played roles in such shows as The Saint, The Avengers, Adamant Lives. Great show. I'm going to be reviewing that at some point here. The Baron and The Prisoner. So, all the big action-adventure shows of the time in the UK. She had been shortlisted for Alexandra Bestedo's role on The Champions, but she lost out. She does a great job in this. So why is this show worth watching? Well, engaging characters for one, and good writing for another. The concept of a secret supernatural figure is obviously not new, and we have a lot of it in the United States, but typically it plays out in a comedy. Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie, My Favorite Martian, The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, My Mother the Car, even Quantum Leap, if you think about it. Not supernatural, but super science. So it makes sense, though, that oftentimes these are comedies, since awkward situations could be played for laughs. And you obviously are going to get awkward situations when there's magic or when there's a person only one person can see and talk to. Oh, yeah, the Great Gazoo and the Flintstones. What am I thinking? In a detective show, though, the concept could be a real problem. Randall and Hopkirk Deceased does have light comedy to it. I think it almost would have to with this kind of a setup. But it is a true detective show as well, with mystery, with action scenes. A ghost who's invisible at times, capable of passing through walls or just appearing in places, could make detective work too easy. But the writers do a really nice job on the show of working Marty into the plots in a way that doesn't spoil the fun, doesn't spoil the mystery. He's not just an easy Deus Ex Machina to get to, the solution to the crime. Very clever writing. I also like the way that both Marty and Jeff develop through the situation they find themselves in. Marty has to discover some of his powers and how to use them. He has to work on them a little bit, and he does improve over the course of this, sadly only one season that the show got. Likewise, Jeff has to get used to not talking to Marty when other people are around, and making people think he's insane. And he does, over the course of the show, actually get better at that. So they didn't just take, those kind of situations and use them for an easy laugh throughout the series. Marty does have, like I said, an array of power. He can affect the environment, but only in relatively minor ways, although he does learn to blow up a large wind over time, which he can use. So it's not like he can pop in and knock out the bad guy that's about to kill Jeff. They don't make it that easy for him. They have to be clever in how he manages to use his abilities to help get them out of situations. He also, of course, can't just communicate with anybody. So there's a few times where he needs to let somebody know that Jeff is in danger, and he has to find like a medium or a psychic they can talk to. One time it's a guy who is, they put him under for an operation. And so he is kind of temporarily a ghost. It's like his astral body has left his body. And so he kind of, okay, here's what you need to do when you come out of the operation. So they're smart about the way they do that. Jeannie is a nice addition to the show as well. From her perspective, Marty is gone, leaving her behind to pick up the pieces. She retains interest in the detective agency and works there. But from Marty's perspective, he's still around, and he still loves her. She's still his wife. And this provides fodder for a couple different episodes. Marty's jealousy and fear of losing his wife. It's really kind of poignant. I like the way they handled that. We get a good array of villains. They're slightly over the top. Some are really, really sinister. And if you don't recognize the guy in that picture, just imagine him screaming while his face is melting. Speaking of supernatural adventure. And a few of the villains are supernatural themselves. We get one villainous ghost, an American gangster from the 1920s, who forces Marty and Jeff to participate in killing an old rival who done him wrong. Well, in fact, the guy who sent him into the great beyond back in the 1920s. There are some familiar faces, of course, to fans of British TV, which would, of course, be a lot of people in Britain. I enjoyed seeing a young Geoffrey Hughes, famous as Onslow on Keeping Up Appearances in episode 17. Somebody just walked over my grave. I guess this would be kind of what Onslow would have looked like when Daisy was first overcome by his masculine charms. The main thing, though, is that the show could have easily fallen into just a simple formula. But I think they kept it pretty fresh throughout. Good plots, funny without being, too silly. A bit of action, a little mystery, sometimes to solve. Sometimes you kind of knew who the bad guy was, so you were just seeing how the whole thing played out. But it did keep me engaged. Like I said, I typically try to just watch these shows that I want to review one night a week. And it's kind of to see, when I get to that day, am I kind of excited that it's the day to watch that show, or am I kind of dreading it? And this was definitely one that I was very happy to have gotten to at that point in the week. So some favorite episodes of mine include Never Trust a Ghost, episode 4, in which enemy agents pose as government officials to steal documents. Good stakes in this one, and you see how Marty's abilities to infiltrate can cause as many problems as they solve, as he keeps telling Jeff, I saw somebody killed, there's a body, and then they go and the body's gone because Marty has to pop away. You know, you get the idea. Kind of turns the whole thing on its head, where being a ghost isn't always a super big advantage. That's how murder snowballs. Episode 5 involves murder in a theater and Jeff using Marty to simulate a mind-reading act. Arthur Braw, Mr. Granger from Are You Being Served, has a small part in this one. That's not him in the picture, in case you wondered. There he is, the future head of Grace Brothers Gentlemen's Department. The House on Haunted Hill, episode 9, involves a potentially haunted house. Some really fun stuff in that one. For the Girl Who Has Everything, episode 12, featured Lois Maxwell, Bond's Moneypenny, as a woman apparently haunted by ghosts. Or is it a case of gaslighting? And who's doing the gaslighting? The Man from Nowhere, episode 15, has a man presenting himself as a reincarnated Marty, who wants to basically hook back up with Jeannie. Of course, Jeff knows he's lying, but he can't tell her why he knows he's lying. And so it leads to some pretty interesting complications. I already mentioned Somebody Just Walked Over My Grave, episode 17, but it is one of the funnier episodes, a little campier than the rest. Also involves the generation gap trope that you got a lot of back in the day in TV. Money to Burn, episode 20, sees Jeff arrested while watching criminals who offered him a chance to participate in their crimes. A smart lady lawyer has to get him out. That smart lady lawyer is played by Sue Lloyd, who played Cordelia Winfield on The Baron, which I reviewed on this channel a while back, and it was a show that I definitely enjoyed as well. Vendetta for a Dead Man, episode 24, is a goodie as an escaped convict who wants vengeance on Marty Hopkirk, settles for menacing Jeannie instead. Guest stars George Sewell, known from UFO, which I reviewed on this channel a while back, and Timothy West. So, very enjoyable hour of television with this one. Good characters, well acted, interesting plots, a nice balance of mystery, supernatural occult stuff, action, and comedy. I kind of think of it as comfort television. It doesn't work at a blinding pace. It's not especially noisy or obnoxious. Just good stuff to sit and watch and relax. Kind of reminds me in that regard a little bit of something like Tucker's Witch, which I happened to review on this channel a while back. So that's my recommendation for this week. Randall and Hopkirk, Deceased, 1969. Great little British TV show. If this is one you know, let me know in the comments what you think of it, or if you have any questions, you can ask them there. I would love to hear what you have to say. If you enjoyed this little review, please give it a like, maybe think of subscribing, sharing with a friend. That would be very groovy. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. And I will see you again, hopefully soon, in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.